Hello everyone. Today I want to talk about an interesting topic that affect all of us as students, different learning styles. Have you ever wondered why some of your classmates excel in traditional classroom settings while others prefer more hands-on activities? Well, it all comes down to their unique learning styles. Let's explore this further. So, the definition of learning styles is to start off, learning styles are simply the different ways in which individuals prefer to learn and process information. It's important to note that everyone has a preferred learning style, but it doesn't mean they can learn using other methods. And learning styles are just preferences and not limitations. So there are several recognized learning styles, but today we'll focus on our main types. Now I will discuss the common characteristics of different learning styles. Firstly, we have visual learners. These individuals tend to remember things that are written down and prefer to use graphs, charts, and pictures to understand information. For these learners, turning notes into visual aids like diagrams and maps can be very beneficial. They often find it easier to grasp the big picture first before delving into the details. Mind maps and concept maps are particularly effective tools for visual learners. Next, we have auditory learners. These individuals recall information best through hearing and speaking. They prefer to be told how to do things orally and often learn by repeating information aloud. So, a useful tip for educators is to allow these learners to record lectures and listen to them repeatedly. This can greatly enhance their understanding and retention of the material. Lastly, we have learners. These individuals prefer a hands-on approach to learning. They learn best by doing rather than by listening or reading. So they enjoy group work and hands-on activities. For these learners, it can be beneficial to incorporate activities that allow them to learn while doing something else like eating or standing. Understanding these learning styles and their characteristics can greatly enhance the teaching process by tailoring our teaching methods to cater to these styles. We can create a more inclusive and effective learning environment. So now let's proceed to teaching and learning must be supported by instructional materials. Um, Instructional materials play in teaching and learning using the cone of learning as our guide. Look at the picture. The cone of learning developed by Edgar Dale provides a visual representation of how different teaching methods impact our memory and learning retention over time. According to the cone, after 2 weeks, we tend to remember 10% of what we read, 20% of what we hear, 30% of what we see, 50% of what we hear and see, 70% of what we say, 90% of what we say and do. This highlights the importance of active participation and hands-on experience in learning. So, reading and hearing words, which fall under verbal receiving, are the most basic forms of learning. However, classmates, they also have the lowest retention rates. This is where instructional materials come in. By incorporating graphs, charts, and pictures, we can enhance the visual receiving process, increasing the retention rate to 30%. When we combine hearing and seeing, as in watching a movie or demonstration, the retention rate increased to 50%. This is the power of audio-visual instructional materials classmates. So, participation in discussion or giving a talk, which involves saying, increases the retention rate to 70%. This is an active form of learning and can be facilitated by instructional materials that encourage interaction and discussion. Lastly, the highest retention rate of 90% is achieved when we say and do. This involves activities like dramatic presentations, simulations, and doing the real thing. Instructional materials must that support these activities can significantly enhance learning outcomes. So, to make it brief, instructional materials are not just supplementary tools but an integral
to the teaching and learning process. They support various forms of learning, from verbal and visual receiving to active participation and doing, thereby enhancing learning retention and outcomes. Now, what instructional support materials will the teacher use according to the learning styles and the outcomes to be achieved? Firstly, the use of direct proposal experiences through learning by doing is one of the most effective way to retain information, right? So this method allows learners to retain almost 90% of the learning outcomes. Example of this approach include field studies or field trips, mga community immersion, mga practice teaching. These activities provide learners with hands-on experience, allowing them to apply what they've learned in real-world context. This is not only enhances their understanding of the subject matter, but also helps them develop practical skills and competencies. So, secondly, participation in class activities, discussion, reporting, role playing, where where learners have the opportunity to talk and write and um, can also significantly enhance learning retention. According to research, about 70% of learning is remembered through these methods. Example, yung sinabi ko kanina, yung include sa small group discussion, individual reporting, role playing. These activities encourage learners to actively engage with the material, express their thoughts and ideas, and learn from their peers, of course. So, this active participation facilitates deeper understanding and long term retention of the material. So, number three is um, passive participation, such as watching a movie, viewing an exhibit, or watching a demonstration, allows learners to retain around 50% of what has been communicated. So these methods provide visual and auditory stimulation, making the learning experience more engaging and memorable. Fourthly, simply looking at still pictures, paintings, mga illustrations, of course, in drawings, can also result in the retention of around 30% of the material content. So this visual aids can help learners visualize concepts and ideas, making them easier to understand and remember. And then fifth, auditory methods like lectures, sermons, and monologues result in about 20% retention. While these methods may not have as high a retention rate as others, 'di ba? So they are still essential, especially for auditory learners who learn best through listening. Lastly, we have reading. Reading ensures about 10% retention of the material. Despite having the lowest retention rate, reading is the fundamental learning method that allows learners to learn to their own pace and revisit the materials as needed, 'di ba? So, to briefly ex- um, different instructional support materials and methods have varying impacts on learning retention. It's crucial for educators to use a mix of these methods tailored to the learning styles of their students and the desired learning outcomes. This way, we can ensure comprehensive, inclusive, and effective learning experiences for all students, right? In conclusion, instructional support materials are powerful tools that enhance teaching and learning. By leveraging these materials in alignment with learning styles and desired outcomes, educators can create impact learning experiences that empower students to succeed. Thank you for your attention, for listening, and for joining me on this exploration of instructional support materials in education. Bye, everyone.